into it because we're short on time. So this is where we left off last time, and we were discussing. What was it we were discussing? We were discussing the how, the word how, eicha, and whether it was where are you or how, and just that question left open. And also we had something. I think we touched on something deep.
I think we were talking about her, the snake as the mystical
Yes.
source of knowledge and their eyes being opened,
Yeah.
and they knew they were naked, and I was asking you about evil,
Yes.
um,
And
and you were saying evil
and
is
you
the
raised a
absence
good
of good.
argument that because I was characterizing evil as the absence of good, which in some cases
Right.
it is, but you pushed back and said, well, no, there are things which are actively evil, which is a very fair argument. There are things which is usually we see it within people, acts that people do.
Well, I was now about to say, right after we had that class with you, Olea's night, which is New Year's Eve, I don't know which one you all call it. Um, a guy that we knew who's a lawyer,
Yeah.
he came out of church of Olea's night service, and he and his family were going to their car, and he got shot
Wow.
by what they're assuming are members of the gang that he was prosecuting.
Oh, wow.
And I said to Akko just this week, I said, I need to talk to Mushi about this because y'all was saying, y'all were talking about the goodness of the world, but this is not goodness. This is
Well,
evil.
don't misunderstand me. By the way, I'm living in Israel. We're currently, we're currently in a conflict where we are
Correct.
we are begging the people who invaded our country for children. We're begging for our children back. There's
Yes.
a there's a boy called um, Kafir Bibas who turned
Hmm.
one in a tunnel underneath Gaza, and if he's still alive, we are begging to have him returned, and they may or may not return him on Sunday under the agreement that we release prisoners from our prisons who are
Right.
guilty of violent crimes attempting to shoot and murder Jews. So we have to give back murderers to get back a baby.
Right.
So I'm not saying that there isn't evil in the world.
Yeah, because
I'm saying how what how far down do we take it to be, and what how do we define it, and how do we see it in the Bible?
right. Yeah.
So is this snake raising the debate about whether or not they should eat from the fruit? Is that the pinnacle of the representation of evil, or is that a function of free will? Do you see what I'm saying?
I think intention matters.
Absolutely, it does. I saw that once in a debate by Sam Harris. Do you know Sam Harris? He's a secular intellectual debater and writer and political analyst,
Mm-mm.
and he was talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict, and somebody was talking about someone said to him, intention doesn't matter in a conflict if somebody dies, and he goes, absolutely it matters. He said,
Mm-hmm.
imagine the difference between someone breaking into your home and stabbing you, or your friend turning around at a party and accidentally stabbing you. In both cases, a knife has damaged your body. But in the
Yes.
second case, that person is going to put down the knife and call the ambulance. But in the first
Right.
case, they're likely to stab you again. So intention is very important, even in the immediate and the practical. It's very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have free will, there is no intention.
Right.
You're not capable of intention towards good or towards evil.
Right.
You are an automaton. You are a robot. You are a
Right. Yeah.
You're
and
existing. You're
you're
just existing.
existing. Exactly. You're following your programming the way a deer or a fox might do, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't form a loving relationship with the creator of the universe. That's something which is out of your mandate. So as well, that also stands for seeing God in the physical world. So why we talk about why can't we see God? Why can't we talk to God? Well, at that point, that level of awareness of God would remove all free will.
Right.
If there was no debate about the existence of God, no one could have any free choice about whether or not to have a relationship with God. You see what I mean? It's the same as saying, like, can you pass me the salt? or can you pass me the salt when I've got a gun to your head? You know, if you know I've
Right.
got,
Yes,
like,
for
you're
sure.
passing the salt. Like there's no,
Right.
Yeah.
you know. So so do you love me? Do you love me if I'm threatening to burn you for eternity if you don't love me?
Right.
Right,
So
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
if that is a system that God created, I don't think that's a God that any of us would compel to. And it's not a God that we would be interested in who says, "Love me, or I'll burn you." And by the way, I'll burn you with no reprieve, because that system believes that the negative consequence is eternal. Now,
Right.
imagine you've heard of Chinese water torture.
Yes.
Yes. Drip, drip, drip.
Just that drip, drip, drip. If it goes on too long, that will it drive someone completely insane. Scale
Mm-hmm.
that up to burning. An eternity is just the most evil thing that anyone could imagine.
Well, we
So
don't believe that, just by the way. We don't believe that there's an eternal hell.
who doesn't?
Us.
Good. I'm glad for all of us that you don't. But
Yeah.
Christianity does. And I think it was Paul who said, by the way, don't ever believe that hell is empty.
But
So
Paul, well,
Paul's not my
Paul.
favorite. I don't like Paul.
Right,
I don't like
right.
Paul very much. Paul doesn't like women. Paul has some very extreme opinions about gay people. Paul never met Jesus,
Yeah, yeah.
but Paul is the founder of the religion,
Well, he's the founder of the Pauline version of the religion.
which most of
Most
Christianity
people.
today is Pauline. Is that fair?
Yeah, the nice thing with here is because we're very small but very involved. So like on one street here, you could have a mosque, a mandir,
Wonderful.
a church.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
fact is you're exposed to many different beliefs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the same here, by the way, that you can have a mosque right next to a synagogue in Israel.
Mhm.
Right.
Obviously, we are the majority. Jews are the majority within the borders of Israel.
Mhm.
Right.
But in the region, we're 0.03% of the Middle
Well,
East.
Right.
So
Yes.
it depends. It
Well,
depends
yes.
how far you zoom in and how far you
True.
zoom
Right.
out.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah. I think this is the thing, and I hope you don't mind me comparing the two. It's just because those are our two, really things
no,
to
well, we're here to
compare.
learn. We're here to learn.
Right. And it's not a dig. It's just that there's a theological reason behind my objection to the concept of an eternal hell, and that is you're saying that's God's idea, and for me that's insulting to God.
Mhm.
Do you see what I mean? That he would have that level of cruelty that he could apply to his own children in response to not being loved. That's a problem for me. I find that to be an insulting image of God. Whereas what we have is no one's compelled to continue into the next world. So they just don't if they don't. We have people who have a place in the world to come, which are really people who seek a place in the world to come. And we have people who don't have a place in the world to come. And that's people who seek there not to be one. So that seems much more fair, I think. That you don't force a life on someone who doesn't want a life, but you also don't torture someone endlessly for not choosing the right book. Do you see what I mean?
Well, for me, that's just heavily Greek. That's
Yes.
Greek. That's
Yeah.
Hades,
Hades,
and the
absolutely.
underworld. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into this verse here. V'yichra Adonai Elohim. God called El Ha'adam to the person, to the man. V'yomer lo, and said to him, Eicha. Now we had a discussion. Some people translate this as where are you? Which actually, you can say, well, A can be where and Cha can be you, but normally there's not a hey on the end. But the other translation is how. Now, if it's where are you, he's maybe playing the classic parents game when they find their child is hiding, going, where are you? Because what they're doing is they're engaging with the person on that level. If Adam thinks he can hide from God, then God's going to play along with that and start a discussion. Fair enough. If you hold that it's how, he's asking, how did you get to the point where you are hiding, you are wearing clothes? You're your level of understanding has shifted. And it goes on to say, V'yomer et kolcha shemati began. This is now Adam speaking. Now remember that the verse breaks are new. They're not actually in the original text, right? So this is, imagine if this is still the same verse as the previous. So when you go V'yomer, and it keeps on going V'yomer, it's often changing characters, right? So in the previous verse, V'yichra V'yomer, that's God calling to the Adam and saying to him, where are you? And then Adam is replying, Et kolcha shemati. Now, kol is your voice, right? And cha means yours. And because he's talking to God, he's saying that the voice of God, shemati. Shema is to hear. And when you put taf yod on the end of a verb, it means I did it in the past, right? So shemati means I heard. Everyone happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Your voice I heard began in the garden, right? V'ira. Now this is debated at different times. This means to fear. So Ra'eh Reish Aleph Hey is to see, but Yod Reish Aleph is to fear or to have awe, right? Now this putting an aleph on the beginning means I will fear, and then putting a tense flipping vav in front of that means I feared in the past, right? People don't like this word for God because they think, well, God is love and God is our Father, so we shouldn't really fear him. But actually, classically, if you really understand how big and how infinite God is, fear is a natural response. It's, you can still love God, but if you're trying to fathom the absolute infinite, I get a bit frightened when I just think how big the galaxy is. I can't imagine being this tiny little speck in this vast and where most of it is completely uninhabitable. And we'll take that to the infinite degree. The scale would make one wobble.
Like
So
the people at Mount Sinai when God spoke initially.
they begged Moses to go up the mountain and so they could stop hearing the voice of God because they were so overwhelmed by the voice of God. The commentaries say they kept on dying and coming back to life again just because the sheer voice of God was so awesome that it was killing their physical body and then resurrecting their physical body over and over again. They were overwhelmed with the power of God and they were just, Moses, you do it, I can't handle it. And God went, that's a good response. He actually said this is an appropriate response to send Moses up because Moses is prepared. Remind me to talk to you about artificial prophecy in a bit because that features very heavily in that. Have you heard about artificial prophecy? It's a really cool idea. Okay, but let's just go for a couple of verses first. I heard your voice in the Gan and I feared because Erum Anochi. Notice how he's only talking on his own behalf. He's not talking for his wife. He's not saying, we did this and we thought this. He can only speak for himself. He's not speaking over her. He's just answering God who's speaking to him. So he said, because I'm naked, right? Va echaveh. And we counted this word briefly a couple of verses back. And chaveh chet bet aleph. Sorry?
Sorry. Just ask her if she... Yeah.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
You're taking the call from the door. Yeah, no worries. I'll keep you talking.
She's messaging me.
Okay. Yeah.
So echabeh is to hide. So just like va'ireh, va'echaveh is the same grammar. You've got the root here, you've got the aleph saying I will do this verb, and then you've got the tense flipping vav to flip it into the past. So just like I feared, it's I hid.
Yeah.
And again, he doesn't say she hid. Now, actually, a few verses back, it said he hid them.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't throw her under the bus and say she hid as well. He said I hid, right? So God postulates a reason why he hid. So he said, first of all, I hid because I'm naked. So God asks a super weird question. He said, Mi higid lecha. Who told to you? So higid is from yagad, which is this is a causative. So who told to you, who made you aware, l'cha, ki erum ata? Who told you that you were naked? Now, what does this is God actually trying to get to the point. Okay, I understand you're hiding, I understand you're naked, but you were naked before and you weren't hiding then. So what he really wants to know, he actually already knows the answer, of course, but what he wants Adam to recognize is what's changed? What's happened for you inside? I already knew you were naked. I'm the infinite. But you didn't know, but now you do. So, mi higid lecha ki erumata, who told you that you're naked? And then he suggests the answer. This hey here, by the way, hey is normally a the, right? But in this particular case, it's a special hey which only comes up every now and again, and it turns a statement into a question. In English, we just put a question mark.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't come until, strangely, it seems to be, I heard a linguist saying the other day that the question mark is probably based on an Egyptian image of an inquisitive cat, because apparently when cats are inquisitive, their tail curves like this. And the Egyptians noticed that, and they went, oh yeah, that's the sign of inquisition. And so they started using it. But we hadn't had that at this point. So hamin, which means min is from, ha'et's the tree, asher. Now, get ready for this, Ayanna. I think we're going to have an argument about this. And that's not a bad thing in my opinion. I want the argument. Okay, so min ha'etz asher tziviticha, right? Tzav is to command. Tziviti is I commanded, because the t at the end of a verb means I did it in the past, right?
Yeah.
Tziviticha is I commanded you. Libliti, to not, achal, eat, mimenu, from them. Right? So when he puts the hat on the beginning of the min, he's saying, is it so that from the tree that I commanded you to not eat from, akalta, you ate? Now, bring your statement.
Well, in my mind, to me, in the beginning, he said, you will eat it. And it wasn't a command to not eat it. It was just sort of open to see what you'll do. I'm just letting you know.
Right.
And now he's like, listen, did you eat that thing that I told you not to eat?
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas from my perspective, he said, you will eat and don't eat. So he said both. So for him to say, did you eat from the tree I told you not to, is still true, because he deliberately raised a paradox in order for them to make it a choice. So it's for this for me is not a problem. But I was wondering if you're going to say, see, I told you, he said don't eat from it. But you didn't. You were already light speeds ahead of me. You were already brought up the paradox. Fine, beautiful. Okay, I'll try and trick you into fighting with me another day. So what does he say? What's his reaction? Right? That's just talking about the Hifil, but we've got Hifils ages ago. We've got that down. So let's get back into the verses. So this is all set. So this is the question. V'yomer mi higid lecha ki erumata. He said, who told you? And he explained this. Oh, my slides are all messed up. This is all stuff we've done. Oh, this is because I've been telling you about grammar, but the flow's too good. We can't stop and do that now. Okay. So
we can go back.
This is, I'll put that in another lesson. Let me take this out. This is telling me to stop here. V'yomer ha'adam. What does it mean?
Adam said.
Absolutely. Adam said. Ha'isha.
The woman.
Yeah. Asher. What's Asher?
With a gift.
Sorry?
The woman that you gave to me.
Yes. So Asher is that or which. Natata. Natata is you gave. Imadi to me. So let me set you up with a premise. If he thinks this is wrong, if he thinks it was wrong to eat the fruit, he's blaming the woman. And not only is he blaming the woman, he's saying the woman that you gave me. So he's also blaming God. So if
Yeah.
he thinks he did the wrong thing, this is barefaced chutzpah. He should be in trouble because he's like, like, well, how did you get here? Oh, well, it wasn't me. It was the woman. And by the way, it's the woman you gave me. Listen, Adam, she's half of your body. Like you are one. Even if she did it wrong, that's still you, right?
Yeah.
So you're one
Yes,
flesh,
yeah.
right? But if he thinks this was the right thing to do, what he's doing is giving her credit and giving God credit. You see what I mean? Because she was convinced by the discussion. He was convinced by the discussion between his wife and the Nachash, the snake, right? And at the end of it, she ate, and he looked at that, and she handed him the fruit. He went, yeah, I get it. Because we're not supposed to stay here. We're supposed to go into the world, right? So now he's saying, the woman that you gave to me, he natatali, she gave it to me, min ha'etz, from the tree, for ochel, and I ate. Right? So you can see how you can read it either way. If your bias is that this is a good thing and he knows it's a good thing, he's giving her credit. If your bias is this is a bad thing and he thinks it's a bad thing, he's blaming her and blaming God. So we'll try and hold both those in our head at the same time.
Right.
So God hears this statement. It's true. The woman he gave her did make this decision, and she gave it to him, and he ate. Doesn't mean he's not culpable. He's still gonna make his own decisions,
Exactly.
But if it's the right thing, he's done the right thing, and he's not overshadowing his wife, but going, she was the one that had the conversation. She's the one that figured it out. So hold both of those. What does God do? God in the next verse says, V'yomer Adonai Elohim le'isha. What does it mean?
Adonai. What?
V'yomer. Do you remember what v'yomer means? The verb v'yomer.
Say
To say
Yes, v'yomer Adonai Elohim.
Adonai Elohim.
God said?
Yeah, God said, La'isha. Who's the Isha?
To the woman.
To the woman. God says the woman. So immediately, Adam says, the woman you gave me, she ate from the fruit, she gave it to me, and I ate it. So he doesn't push back on that. He knows he's telling the truth. He doesn't need to say, okay, well, are you willing to take a lie detector test? Are you willing to put one hand on the Bible and swear on it?
Right.
So he just, turns to the woman, and he says to her, Ma zot asit. Now, this is actually a really important statement. This comes up later in the Bible as well. When Abraham tricks Pharaoh into thinking that Sarah is his sister rather than his wife, rather than actually recognizing she's his close female relative and his wife. And then this happens again a generation later with the guy who lives in Gerar, who I've forgotten his name for a moment. And then also with his son, the same guy gets angry at his son for doing the same thing. And then, so this goes on. Mazot asit means, what's this you did? Ma is what? Zot is this. Asit is you did to a woman. V'tomer ha'isha. What's that? We had...
said.
Sorry?
She said.
She said, the woman, absolutely. The woman said, Hanachash, right? Hanachash is the snake.
The snake, yeah.
He shiani va'ochel. Right. Now, the snake did something and I ate. So in the first case, the woman did something and I ate. In the second case, the snake did something and I ate. So we're going further earlier in time. We need to know what Hishiani is. Well, Hishiani is a hifil. It's got an extra hay here, right, at the beginning. If we make that hay purple, we realize that's not what we're counting as part of the roots. Then we take out the extra yod, right? And what does ani mean at the end? What's ani in Hebrew? Do you know what ani means? Aleph nun yud. It means I. So you get the word I, as in the first person. So he shiani means he did something to me. He shianied me, right? And I ate. So what does he shiani mean? Well, I've got a list here from that root. The root is nasa, which means to lift, right? But this meaning means married. married, to raise something, to be arrogant, to bear, to carry, to tolerate, president, top, summit, yield, return, investment, topic, beacon, marry off. So it's something about either raising up, carrying, or marrying. Now, remember that from the beginning, this naked snake that we were dealing with had two possible levels to it. It had the idea that we were going to discuss sexuality of the first people and their awakening to realizing they were naked and so on. And also it was going to have the idea of free will and temptation. So there's a couple of different ways that you can phrase this. I have this in the Hifil, which means to marry, 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 marry. And of course, the connotations of marrying a naked snake are not lost on any of us. We all know what that kind of hinting at. But it also means something else. Here is another dictionary which lists it as to carry, to bear, to marry, to marry. So it's both carrying and marrying.
Mhm.
Now, if you look at your kids and they're playing, and then the energy keeps on rising, Auntie Florence gave them some chocolate and some sweets, and then they're playing, but you know they're getting carried away, right? Now imagine you could say, I didn't get carried away, he carried me away, right?
Okay.
So it's another way of saying he persuaded me, right? Which is what happened. He made the case and she was convinced. Like it's almost like he got carried away, but with me. I was carried off by his ideas, by his speaking. He didn't lift her up physically. So he married me to his ideas. I got carried away with his principle that he's pitching. Are you guys happy with that?
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So then what does the snake then do? Sorry, what does God then do? So God went to the man blamed the woman, God went to the woman blamed the snake, and then God says, V'yomer Adonai Elohim el hanachash.
And God said to the snake,
Bingo. So what God says to the snake might set the precedent for how we understand what happens to everyone else. Or maybe the snake gets a different treatment because the snake is not the same character and does not have the same relationship with God. So I'm going to pitch you two things, right? First, he says to the snake, Ki asita zot, because you did this, arur ata mikol habahema, mikol chayat hasadeh, right? Now, arur is to curse. So we talked about, did they get cursed when they got kicked out of the garden? Well, so far the snake definitely is cursed, right? He gets these consequences. So does that mean he did something wrong? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's definitely a possibility that he's getting punished, he's getting cursed because he did something wrong. Is there any other circumstances why you might give someone consequences other than as a punishment?
As a
Right.
teachable opportunity.
Right. Now, God is definitely going to teach the people. We'll come back to why he might do this. Let's read through the sentence. Arur atah, cursed are you, mikol habahema, from all of the animals, uvakol chayat hasada, and from all the life of the field. Now, we had this phrase actually at the beginning. It said, a room, the snake was a room mikol habahema. He was more naked than all the animals, which turned out to be an idiom for being a smooth talker. He was a persuasive person. But not person, persuasive entity. Mikal habahema, from all the animals, and Bakol chayat hasadeh, from all the life of the field, right? Now we've seen she's describing him as being persuasive. Now, it can't be that God's shocked that this snake has persuaded them. And if God didn't want them to be persuaded, like he's angry at the snake, he's going to curse the snake for persuading them, as if he never wanted them persuaded in the first place, then why allow him to go into the garden and persuade them? Like, did he not know that was going to happen? Are we really thinking God's surprised by this, and this wasn't part of the plan in the beginning? So imagine he knew this was going to happen. The whole thing was set up under God's plan in the first place, right? Maybe one time it's good for him to be persuasive, but we want him to be less persuasive from now on. Is that possible?
I don't think God wanted him to be persuasive. I think God knew he would be persuasive. In other words, just because God wants a thing, he can hold himself back enough to give us a choice,
Ah,
right? So that what he wants ideally will always pertain because he has the final say. But at the end of the day, what he's willing to do is give us the opportunity to do one thing or the other,
I
which is what
100%
he
agree
did.
with you. And that's because there's always another side. If you say to your kid, you can have anything for dinner as long as lasagna, right? That's a joke because it's a paradox.
Yes.
There is going to be lasagna for dinner.
Yeah, like if I'm saying, look, I'm going out now, and you know I want you to behave, but I'm
Right.
gonna trust you. It's only really trust if there's a potential for them to break your trust. And even if they break your trust, you can still use that as a teachable moment, right?
Yeah.
So you said God always gives him a choice. This is how you set up the first choice. Now you have free will. So imagine you're literally giving free, say you're a robot programmer, right? You're setting up the robot in the first place and you want your robot to be the first robot with free will, free choice. So to start with, you set it as a thing where it has to choose for itself whether it wants free choice. It has to click the button that says free choice or the button that says I want to remain a slave, right? So it chooses the free will. Now, I want you to have free will, but I kind of want you to be good at the same time. So I'm going to make the urge to be good slightly stronger than the urge to do wrong. So I have to make the urge to do wrong. I have to add checks and balances. It's still a choice, even if the urge to do good is stronger, but it's only really going to work if the urge to do bad is slightly weaker. That's what I'm pitching to you. And we'll see if that plays out, right? So he goes on to say, Al gechoncha telech. This is the curse. On your bend you will go. So al is on. It comes from aliyah, to ascend. Gechon we don't ever see anywhere else. There's not a lot of bend in the Torah, so we don't really see bend that often, okay? But in this case, we see on your bend you will go. Telech, because taf means she will do or you will do, and he's talking to the snake, so he's saying you will go on your bend. What does that mean? That means you've got no legs now, so you've got to like bend around the place like a snake does, right?
Mhm.
So that's what we know about snakes. They go on their bend. It sounds like a drunk guy in a pub in England shouting at you, on your bend, mate. Get out of here, right? That's the kind of vibe we're getting, right? And it says also, afar, which is dust, tochal, dust you will eat, right? Which means, what's close to the ground if you're eating dust every day?
Well, you
What is
Go on, say
what
it.
what's the question? I don't understand the question.
What has to be close to the ground to make you eat dust every day?
your head.
You
Yes,
you
that's
have
what's
to be,
happening.
yeah.
You're not going on your legs anymore, you're going on your bend so that your mouth is close to the ground. Why is it important that the snake's mouth is close to the ground?
It'll be more difficult for him to do what he just did in the future.
Right. Before, his mouth was by her ear and he persuaded her. Now God has lowered him down to the ground and it's harder for him to persuade her in the future. God is weakening the urge to do the wrong thing. So we needed it once to give us free will, but now we still need it to give us free will, but we want it to be weaker, right? Kol yamei chayecha, all the days of your life, which means, in perpetuity.
Mhm.
Not necessarily snakes, but the persuasive urge will be weaker and close to the ground from now on. And that changes our relationship with the urge to do bad, right? He was perfectly persuasive first time round. But now, so to whose benefit, or to the benefit of whom, if I want to do it precisely, to the benefit of whom is it to weaken the snake?
Man's benefit.
Oh well.
Well, always man and woman. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. It's not about the snake. It's not about rewarding or punishing the snake. God doesn't care what the snake does. He's not trying to teach the snake. Right? The snake is what it is. It's the people that God is trying to benefit. And by weakening the urge, God is saying, listen, you have free will, but I'm going to make it easier to do the right thing. I want you to succeed, and I believe that you can be a good person, even though there's the urge to do this. I'm going to give you a Bible that tells you how to live. I'm going to be there whispering in your ear, encouraging you to make the right choice. And the thing that's whispering in your ear, encouraging you to do the wrong thing, I'm going to make it weak. I'm going to put its mouth close to the dirt so that you're not down there. It goes on to say, to describe more how this snake is cursed. V'oiva ashit benecha. So oiva is from the word oyev, which is an enemy. So this is enmity, right?
Right.
Enmity, benecha, or benecha, between you or vein ha'isha. There will be enmity made.
Between you
Yeah,
and the woman.
exactly. And it goes on further. Uvein zeracha, uvein zera. Do you remember the word zera, zeroa?
Yep.
It's seed. So there's going to be enmity between you and the woman,
Right.
and between your seed and her seed. So in every generation, there will be conflict between the urge to do the wrong thing and between the humans. And it's not just, by the way, it's not just the women, because of course the women have seeds who are male and female. So all of the descendants of that first woman, there will be conflict between us and the snake. Not just the physical snake, but just the idea of fighting against God. And it goes on to say, the who, now who in this case refers to the seed of the woman, because he's not talking to the woman now, he's talking to the snake. So the seed of the woman, who he, yashufcha rosh, and lashuf is to trample. So he will trample your head. Right? Notice, if he's trampling your head, that's because your head is down by his feet. That's why we have things like, in England they have this image of St. George and the dragon, and the dragon's always low down to the ground, and St. George is stamping on the neck of the dragon and sticking the sword in. That's this image of saying it's below you. If this thing is up by your ear, up by your neck, up by your face, snake's already a problem. But if it's down below your feet, that's the advantage we have, right? So he's all about strengthening us. So he will trample your head. V'ata teshufenu echev. Now, you, this is now talking to the snake, you, the snake, will trample or damage ekev. And ekev is a heel, right? The foot. So if you had a choice in a fight, imagine you're going into MMA, right? You're in a cage fight with a terrifying monster, and you're given the choice, do you want to stamp on his head, or do you want to bite at his heel? There's clearly an advantage in being the one that stamps on the head, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't remember anything.
humanity has the high ground. That's what God's telling him. By the way, Ekev is a joke, because Ekev, if you put a yod on the beginning, it becomes Yaakov. Who's Yaakov?
Yeah, Jacob?
That's Jacob. And that's who becomes Israel. So he's saying that there's going to be this struggle between the urge to do the wrong thing and this family which is being foretold about, right? Which is going to be the carriers of this book. They're not the only people that matter, but they're God's librarians. And the only reason they really exist is to be a spigot for blessings for the rest of the world. This comes up first in the story of Abraham, where God explicitly tells him, I'm giving you land and I'm giving you offspring so that you can be a nation, and that all those who bless you will be blessed and all those who curse you will suffer. And by you, they will bless themselves, all the families of the earth. It says families of the earth will bless themselves by you. So that's a way of saying, oh, I want a lightning rod of blessings. I will approach the Torah and the Jews and say, how do I get blessing? And we go, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that, and you'll be blessed and you'll be successful. So at the moment, nobody likes the Jews. It's very plain in the news but the end game is for us to serve you guys in the temple. Because in the temple, we have Kohanim, we have priests. I can't just walk into the middle of the temple. I've got to bring what I want to do to the priest, and the priest offers it on my behalf. And he has a very, very narrow, restrictive life so that he's allowed to go in that temple so that he can bring my sacrifices. So he works for me. And we give him a lot of honors because of that, right? And then the other thing is, we have a very, very restrictive, difficult life so that we can carry the Torah and carry all this information and memorize it so that when the nations are ready, they come to the Jews and they say, how do I do this? They go, I'm here to be your librarian. I'll help you find the books you want. I'll help you find the information you want. And we love that job. That's what we want. So that's what's happening with the snake. And then he turns back to the woman. He goes, man, woman, snake, and then snake, woman, man. He goes, goes down the line
Right.
up again. El Ha'isha Amar, to the woman he said, Harba Arbe. Now this means Harba means very much, Arbe, I will increase. You see how this is the same word. Rav and Rav is the root of the word, and Rav means very much. So one is muchly, and Arbe is the verb to increase. So they're very, very closely connected. So very much I will increase. Itzavonech. Sorry?
No, I was just reminding, we were discussing this a few days ago, and I
Oh,
forgot.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. So very much I will increase. Itzavonech v'haronech. Now you see the eich, that's the feminine possessive. That's talking to a woman and saying this is yours and this is yours. The first one, eitzev, atzav, you see at the top, means sadness, difficulty, or suffering. So that really sounds like a curse, right? I will increase your difficulty. Right? That sounds bad, right? But it says, and your pregnancy. V'haronech. Because being pregnant is difficult. Now, if you're sending your daughter off into the world and saying, go and look for someone decent to marry, if you don't tell her that being pregnant will be difficult, you're a bad parent, right? You're not cursed.
What's the word? What's the root? What's that word?
So
What does it mean?
Eitzev here, the root is ayin tzadi vet, that's difficulty, or it's not really about pain. That's koev is pain. Etzev is like to be dissatisfied or to have difficulty. It really means difficulty. And then the on makes it into a noun, and the eich makes it your difficulty. So greatly I will increase your difficulty, v'haronech, and your pregnancy. So it's basically saying your pregnancy will be difficult. Is what he's saying.
So what
Go
is
ahead.
helpful? What is helpful? A couple slides back,
Yeah.
you said oyev, you had the word oyev, and next to it you said enemy, right? And then you had the word.
Hatred and loathing. You want to see that
That
for
is,
Etzav?
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
for other things, because when I am
Doing a review.
doing a revision, I can recognize the word just based on the letters
Yeah.
with the meaning, but I can't say it. I
Yeah.
can't pronounce it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'll increase how I do that from now on. In the beginning, it might have been too much because if you're just memorizing a great deal of stuff,
Yeah.
that's very difficult, right?
And this
Um,
week I found a guy, and I was looking up stuff on YouTube for the Torah,
yeah.
and I clicked on it because I said Torah Genesis 1 or whatever, and I didn't realize that the guy was going to be saying it in Hebrew. Anyway, so I said, you know what? I don't understand what he's saying, but let me listen and see if I recognize any words.
Oh, good. Well done.
And I did recognize some words, and I got all excited. Well, I recognized
Yeah.
the sound of it.
That's
And I was like,
so
oh gosh, but I
nice.
couldn't remember exactly what they meant. So I think if there is a little bit of that,
Yeah. 100,
then that'll be helpful.
100%.
Yeah.
No problem at all. What I'll do as
Thank
well is
you.
I'll try and do this from now on. I'll highlight it with this color if the next slide is going to have this on it.
Okay.
So if the
Yeah.
word has this and also here this, then
Right.
that means I'm
Yeah.
about to give you a dictionary page afterwards. Would that
Yeah.
work? Would that
Right.
work?
That's great.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem. So the question is he saying because you did this, I'm going to make pregnancy painful when before it wouldn't be painful? Or is he saying, listen, no one's ever been pregnant before. I'm giving you a heads up. Pregnancy sucks. It's painful, right? Now, you as a psychologist, right,
Mm,
if pregnancy was easy, like if you just got a bit of a big belly for a few months and then just popped it out and it was nothing, how would that compare in terms of your relationship to the baby then if it's a great deal of effort to get pregnant in the first place, and then it's a great deal of effort to be pregnant, and then giving birth is very painful and difficult, but then at the end of all of that, you get a rush of endorphins and oxytocin when you cuddle this very annoying baby who's going to prevent you from having sleep for at least a year, and you have to not kill this thing, right? Which one is more likely to be successful? The difficult pregnancy with the loving baby at the end, or the easy pregnancy where it's like, well, if this one's annoying me, I could just do another one in a minute.
Well, you see, that's maybe you shouldn't ask me that. Maybe you shouldn't ask me that because I think it really depends. I think it really depends because I know people who've had difficult pregnancies and
Yep.
said, never me again.
Okay,
I'm not doing it.
but they kept the baby that
Um,
they had as a result of it, and they love the baby as a result, right?
Love.
They did. They
Yeah,
did. But they loved the baby because it was already there and they didn't have any choice because they can't send it back.
they don't have any choice. Isn't that the thing? Once you got the thing, you are bound to this thing forever.
Found it.
Even after your own death, you're going to be bound. This thing is going to keep on going on and bring.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it's very similar to the camaraderie from war. That lads will go to war and they'll go through horrible trauma, and no one else will ever understand what they went through other than the guy who was right beside them. And their friendships are like friendships no one else
True.
understands.
True.
And you and your baby have had that experience. It's like you've gone to war together, and you come out. And I'm not undermining at all the relationship between the father and the baby, because they go through their own thing. But specifically for the mother, there's something in there, isn't there? That it's not a punishment. We don't say, "Oh, I'm being punished. I've got a baby."
Well, here's my thinking because this is what we argued about just this week. We didn't
Hopefully
argue.
not in front of the
Yeah.
kids.
Oh, no. I really believe that had they made a different choice, they would have had their baby and it would have been Culo Brizo. I
How
am
would
not saying
how would they
I'm
have
not
they
saying
had the baby?
because remember, your premise is not my premise. I'm not starting from where you're starting from.
Well, you are.
You're
You're starting from the
starting,
text I'm starting from.
yes.
So you have to argue it
You're
from the text.
He's saying that they would have
you
eventually evolved into knowing about stuff in the current state before eating the fruit
But
and had babies.
let me tell you,
did that idea come from the Bible?
but you see, I don't see the text as saying that it didn't. That's the problem. I don't
Ah,
see the text
so
as
you
being
agree?
against
So you agree that what I say about the text is in the text, that because of eating the fruit they became aware of themselves sexually and they're going to have babies. But you're saying the other thing is maybe it could have happened this way. I can't
I
draw
am
it. You can't do it. You can't draw it from the text, but you can read it into the text.
you can. But
Right.
what I am saying is their eyes were open and they realized that they were naked. I am not interpreting that to mean that they were two innocents who went along not having sex, and then their eyes were open, and then they were like, "Oh, wait, you're a man, and I'm a
So
woman.
so are you
Let's
saying
do
that
stuff."
it's more about realizing that they were cold?
No, I think it's a
So
deeper realization. I think their nakedness for me, and this is just for me, represents the understanding that we don't have the covering that we thought we had, which would have
ah
been God. Because
no, but
now
they do
we
have God. They
no,
do
they
have
have
God.
God. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
mean God, I mean the covering. In other words, here we are, lovely, we have a great relationship. We've not gone against anything in the beginning. Okay, so God says, hey, do whatever you want, but I'm just saying, if you do this, this is what's gonna happen. So he's giving them the free choice, but he's letting them know what's gonna happen, right? They having eaten the fruit now, they now have the knowledge of good and evil. I mean, it hasn't expressed, but they now have it because by virtue of eating the fruit. I
Because the
think that
Bible told us that they have this.
correct.
Yeah, we know
I
that they do.
think,
Yeah.
and this is my personal opinion, this is not a religious opinion, meaning it's not a denominational opinion. I think that the nakedness that they realized was that we now know good and evil. We are now we now know, like God, not in his infinite, but you know what I mean. We are now exposed to what God knows, which is good and evil. And we recognize now that we don't have that innocent protection. We are now exposed
Can I
because we've exposed ourselves to both good and evil. So now we're naked. I
can
don't
I
think that has
can I point out
necessarily.
something that you may have missed from this verse that we're reading right
Yes, tell
now?
me. Sure,
As
go ahead.
soon as he talks to her, he's saying about she's going to get pregnant. And that seems to be a direct consequence of the fact that she ate this fruit. He says, okay, now you're going to have difficulty and pregnancy. That is a consequence of the choice she made. That's what I'm saying. And this is not the last
So
time
you're
that God.
saying you're going to have difficulty and you're going to have pregnancy, not you're going to have difficulty in or with pregnancy.
They're given at the same time. There was no pregnancy before this. There was no babies being had before this. He
But
says, now you, difficulty and pregnancy. He has,
is there a word? Is there a joining word? Is there a conjunction between those two things?
if there is no conjunction, that means there's two things, difficulty and pregnancy,
Yes,
which means that
yes.
pregnancy is a result of this fruit.
It means that you're going to have difficulty and you
No.
you
You're
have
saying,
difficulty.
no, your point is that she was going to have pregnancy anyway, but there's going to be difficulty in pregnancy if there is a
Correct.
conjoining word. But there isn't. It doesn't say but.
Right. That's what I was asking. No, I was asking you, not stating. I'm
Yeah.
asking you if there's a conjunction.
So
And
let
you're
me show
saying
you.
no.
And there's one more event in here. So we've got the difficulty here, and the pregnancy, and there's one more verse in here which is going to continue that same point.
All right.
Let's go forward a little bit forward. This
Okay.
is Be'itzavon tel di banim. In
Right.
difficulty you will bear children, right? Which is what you were asking for. That in difficulty you will bear. So
Right.
that's all tied together. So we have one statement where it's separate and one statement where it's together. So we've got both those points. But that's not the one I want to draw you to. I want
Okay.
to say I know that's Nachash. Sorry, I've doubled up on my verses somehow here.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it's just that one. So this one here. Oh, this is what he's saying to the Nachash. That's doubled up as well. Sorry. Here we are. Oh no,
Yeah.
sorry. I've really messed up. Hang on, let me just cut out all of this and get you back to where we were.
So you don't think there's any way that my explanation, my thinking about the innocence and the nakedness could possibly be it because they just ate the fruit. They now have the knowledge. And in literature, nakedness can represent many things. It can
This is older than
Oh,
all literature. This
well,
is
I
the
was just about to say
this is the
this one
first
does not
incident.
know
So
Western. This is Middle Eastern,
okay.
Northeast Africa.
I don't think, and I don't think your point is a bad point. I just want to show you this extra verse. And we're nearly out of time, so
Okay, yeah,
I want
sure.
to get us there and see if
Yeah,
this
we
affects.
can
So
find
this
out.
is what Be'etzev. This is what we had a minute ago, which is Be'etzev tel di banim. In difficulty you will bear children. And this is the second half of her. If it's a curse, then a curse. But if it's not a curse, a consequence.
Right. Yeah.
Va'el ishek, and to your husband. This is if anything there's a curse, this is the curse. And to your husband, to shucha take, you will desire. Right? So you're going to desire your husband, which means that before she didn't desire her husband. Now that they realize they're naked, they desire each other. They're bound to each other by family and desire. And then watch this. Vahu, and he, yimshal bach. Now we got that word. The first time we had mashal was about the sun and the moon governing the night and the day, right? So this sounds like it's oh, hang on, I did that by mistake. It sounds like it's saying he will govern you, right? Like your husband's going to rule you. But the reason it's not that is because it
And that's
says.
a curse. That is a
Sorry?
curse. That's a curse.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. I haven't seen it in my marriage, but but actually, what I see, yeah,
Be careful.
women like to say,
He has
but
a
we
gun,
all
be
know
careful.
this. Absolutely okay. So, but it says Bach. What does bet mean?
Oh gosh. Don't ask now. In
or with.
in or with.
It doesn't say over. If you wanted to say he will rule over you, it would say hu yimshal elecha or elaich. But
Mm-hmm.
this says he will rule with you.
No way.
That is not a curse.
That's not a curse.
That is explaining marriage.
That's a whole new paradigm.
It says you're going to desire your husband. You're going
And
to
you
have
can rule with him?
babies and you're going to rule together.
That is amazing.
Is that a curse?
No.
Is that
That's amazing.
marriage?
Yes.
Right. Now, let's see what happens with the man. Because
Right.
this is a really important thing, right? Because this is
So we
how
won in this whole affair then. We are winning here, is what I'm getting
you are
from this.
winning. You're winning together. That's what modern society doesn't want. They want the men want the men to win, the women want the women to win, and the Torah says, work together, you idiots. Stop
Yeah,
fighting
yeah.
each other. The whole point is you're supposed to be on the same team for the same purpose. So Ula Adam, and to the man Amar, he said, Ki shamata lokol ishtecha, because you listen to the voice of your wife. Right now, think about how you want this to go. Is this going to be a punishment or reward? V'tochel min ha'etz, and you ate from the tree. Asher tziviticha, that I commanded you, lemor, to say, lo tochel mimenu, do not eat from them. Arur, cursed. Is he going to be cursed?
No, the
Arur,
ground.
yes, Arur ha'adama, ba'avurech, for your sake. Now that sounds like the ground is cursed because you did something wrong, or for your benefit, for your sake. Because just like she'll have difficulty in birth, you'll have difficulty in work. You'll have to work the ground. And what does it mean that it's cursed? Well, in Gan Eyden, there was fruit everywhere. There was food all the time. You didn't have to do anything. You just walked around taking, like some spoilt millennial rich kid. And we all know they're monstrous. But for your benefit, you're going to have to work a bit, which we know doesn't result in spoilt millennial rich kids. And it says, Be'itzavon, in difficulty, same word, by the way, as difficulty in birth, is his difficulty. Be'itzavon, tochlena, you will eat, kol yamei chayecha, all the days of your life. So people go, oh, I don't want to eat by difficulty. I want it to be easy. Well, those people are called fatties, right? But people who work for a living are satisfied. Isn't this what we're realizing in psychology all the time? That the people who have no struggle have no resilience.
For sure. Yeah.
People, Baron Trump, Will
They're
Smith's
mentally weak.
son. Yes.
Mentally fragile.
Yeah.
But for your sake, you're going to work the ground and you're going to eat food. You're going to earn your own food. If you earn your own food, you have self-esteem, you have confidence. Right? Let's go a little further. Now that's why people are really struggling to understand this, right? Because it's not the answer they want. This is the same thing. I don't know why I've repeated so many things. A lot of, by the way, your dictionary definitions, there's loads of dictionary definitions in these verses here. Okay. Lots of repetition. So this is the real thing that people do not get at all. This is in verse 18. Yod chet. V'kutz v'dada tatzmiach, and thorns and thistles you will plant. Look, for yourself, right? Now that sounds terrible. Why would you plant thorns and thistles, right? V'akalta, and you will eat et asiv, grasses, hasadeh, right? Now, one more verse. B'zayat apecha, by the sweat of your nose, tochel lechem. Now let me just point that out. People go, oh, that means he's got difficult ground to work, and he's planting thorns and thistles, but he's harvesting grasses and he's eating bread. That means your life will be difficult, but you will succeed. You plant the difficult, you harvest the good, you eat the tasty. right? That's heading in the right direction. It starts hard, it gets easier. The more you work, your difficulty becomes your success. People don't read it. They go, I don't want to eat thistles. Well, it never said you were going to eat thistles. It said you're going to plant the rubbish and you're going to harvest the good, right?
Let me ask you a quick question because we have to go.
Yeah, yes.
So where's the idea that the man is the head of the woman and he's in charge and he needs to rule over her? Where did that come from?
Christianity.
The Greeks.
Yeah,
It's a Greek philosophy.
it is a Greek idea. Absolutely. Christianity is the fusion of Jewish ideas and Greek ideas. Absolutely. It's the drawing
Yes,
together
yes,
from the Near East.
yeah.
But if I speak to any Jewish family and say the man is the head of the household, they'll laugh in my face. It's just not the case.
Right.
There's a great rabbi called Rabbi Manis Friedman, and he talks about how when he went to the Rebbe, he didn't know the Rebbe's wife's name because he never said her name. He would go to where she was and speak to her in the ear. He would never shout her name across the house, so he never heard her name.
Right.
Right? Now, actually, he did know her name from documentation and stuff like that, but he never heard her. He never heard the Rebbe say it. There's a great joke. I know you have to go, so I'll just tell you this quick joke, and then I'll let you go, and we'll come back in here next time. I've got more. I've still got one more verse to show you about the idea that sex and family came from eating this tree. Young Jewish boy goes to see his grandma, and she said, "Oh, you tell me, you had the audition for the play today. How did it go?" He said, "It went well." And she said, "Who are you going to be?" And he said, "I've got the part of the Jewish husband." And she said, "Oh dear, I was so hoping you'd have a speaking part."
Wow.
Way.
Yeah. Things
So,
they
That's funny.
so, right, there's more in this. So I'm gonna cut off the slides we've done today because you've already got them in from before. But there's loads of dictionary stuff for you, and next time we'll come in. Feel free to read ahead. But there's a
Yes.
bit when you hear Adam's reaction to God's proclamation of what happens as a result of them eating this fruit. It becomes very clear what Adam thinks has happened. Okay, so I'll leave you with that little
Okay.
teaser.
All
Have a
right.
wonderful day.
Yeah.
Be successful.
Bye. You
High
too.
five your
Thank
kid from
you.
me. Speak
We
soon.
will.
Bye.
We will.
Bye, guys. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.